All right, now on to the predictions for week two. Week two on Friday, we've got our first game coming up: Pat and the Not Pats versus the DOV Tigers. Where are you taking this one, Stevie?
I think Pan and Not Pats take this 2-0. As much as I previously have stated that this is going to be a match for DOV to prove themselves, I don't think it's going to happen in week two.
Mhm.
I think with Pat and the Not Pats bringing in their normal top laner, not their E sub, they're going to look a lot stronger. I expect a 2-0 victory.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm going to go 2-0 Pat and the Not Pats. I was super ready to glaze them in the preseason. You know, they went up against us, so who knows if, like, you know, again, it wasn't their full roster, so I'm not even going to put too much really merit behind it. Obviously, I feel great that my team pulled it out. I'm always happy about it. But I think that we're going to start seeing the real Pat and the Not Pats from here on, and I think they're going to take this 2-0 for sure. I guess we can just go ahead and move on to the next matchup, which is definitely going to be one of the spicier ones. We have Mingos versus Knights of Ishtar.
Yeah, starting off pretty insane for like Saturday, first game of the week. I think Mingo's gonna take it 2-0. I'm sorry, KY. I just week one was just so poor of a showing in my opinion that I mean it kind of, I just think Mingo's looked a little too strong. I don't think you guys can handle with the current roster. Granted, like I've been saying for maybe like the past week and a half, look, if you if you switch Tycoon back to the top lane and then have your old support, then it's probably winning. I think KOI wins. I think KOI beats Mingos if that switch happens. But I can understand if you know for personal purposes that roster switch doesn't happen, and so there's just going to be a little bit more work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I don't really want to even push that narrative too, but I can't help agree with you. If it was Tygoon in the top lane, I just immediately would feel hyped for it because then that's like four of the same. You know what I mean? That's like a finalist winning team basically already. So in general, I'd go that way. But you know, again, this is a team that they like. I'm pretty sure I talked to them before the season even began, and they said that it was going to be kind of a work in progress that they hadn't really been able to really start on yet. So hopefully, we're going to see like some of the fruits and of that, and maybe that they're going to show a strong showing. But usually, stuff like that doesn't really happen until like a couple more weeks in. Week two isn't really where it starts shining too much. So I'm going to also probably take this 2-0 with Mingos. Just taking it, especially if Mingos run the same roster they ran the last week. I think Mingos looked really strong. Their draft looked really good. They were all on the same page, despite the Fiesta play style, but I do think that they just know how to play in that style better, and I don't think Knights of Ishtar can, with their currently constructed roster, I don't think they can really stabilize it until they get more reps in and pretty much scale their comps, like their team better.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us to final game on Saturday. Doctors DPS. I quickly will say 2-1 in favor of the Doctors. I do think the Doctors are slightly stronger than DPS at the moment, especially given that they did have End Defiance as their jungler. I do not know anything about the DPS jungler. Who knows? They might be better than Defiance. And if that's the case, then DPS could take it. But I'm thinking 2-1 Doctors. What do you think, Defiance?
Whoa, whoa, whoa! You know, better than me. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You know, I think that again, DPS to me is a team that's scaling more or less, and I think that we'll start seeing that in more week four plus. I don't think that they've really found their step yet. Obviously, I think that the Doctors win against Glacial, and I do think that Glacial, even though we're putting them pretty much in the upper echelon, I think that there's a good chance that they're probably going to be underrated. And I do think that I saw some good things from the Doctors in game two. I think it's going to be a 2-1, and I think basically the series is probably going to do more to glaze Glacial than really tell us too much about the power rankings. But I do think that the Doctors are going to also show us that they're definitely a team that wants to contend.
Yeah, and that's going to bring us to Sunday evening. First game of Sunday is going to be JPJ and Glacial Golems. I believe Glacial Golems is going to take this 2-0. With the current roster, that Glacial Golems is fielding, it's really difficult to kind of say that they're going to be toppled by JPJ. They certainly can. Not everyone is always on their A game. But I have been playing with particular Squishy Up, their mid laner. and she's constantly improving. So even they're and I quote quote unquote statistically weakest link is always improving, always looking at VODs and doing everything that they can to improve themselves. I mean, that just shows if there's a dedication on there, there's dedication from everyone else too. So 2-0 from Glacial Golems.
I'm going to go ahead and say 2-1 from Glacial Golems. I want to. You know, there's a part of me who just wants to put JPJ over Glacial, but like again, I think Glacial looked really like super strong against what I thought was a better opponent than JPJ did. It's pretty much the opponent diff that makes me think that Glacial is probably going to end up taking it, especially because I just feel like their roster is pretty well rounded. I do think that it could technically go either way because we've seen pretty oftentimes that the balanced teams can take it, and I do think the one thing that about like technically having like weaker members is like, you know, draft I would say like ranked pedigree isn't really everything because there's like a lot of things that can lose you ranked, whether like you if you just go in like with the players who are doing badly, even if you're a good player, you'll play worse. But when you play on a team where your team is like really good, then like if you go in with them, that's not going to lose you a ranked game, right? Because they know, you know, they know what they're doing. So it's like it's a lot of aspects that make up your ranked MMR and stuff like that too. So I don't think really the weaker members of or what could be considered the weaker members, obviously by MMR and rank of Glacial Golems, I don't really think it'll hold them too far back, which is why I'm going to lean towards them against the JPJ because I don't really know if basically the skill discrepancy there is enough to even prove anything. But I would like to see this be a really competitive series. I would like for this to be pretty close, and so I'm going to say 2-1. But I really wouldn't be surprised with pretty much like any result. Maybe I'd be slightly surprised by a result of 2-0 by JPJ, which would just make me glaze them through the roof. But I do think that we're going to end up having a 2-1 either way. But I'm going to lean towards Glacial Golems for sure with what they displayed on this last weekend.
Hmm. I like the analysis. I really do. I do hope that John Porter Jokers can surprise me. Well, that brings us to our last game for Sunday. Cat Cowboys and Maria's Dungeon. Probably the most anticipated game for week 2. The two powerhouses going to be fighting each other. I am going to give it to Maria's Dungeon 2-1. I think the bot lane is really strong here, and having a Defiance in the jungle and Chase in the mid lane is just uber strong. Mike has proven himself. This is going to be Mike's real test against Cat Cowboys' top laner. Um, if he can hold out and win, this could even be a 2-0 for Rio's Dungeon. But I'm gonna say 2-1 because Cat Cowboys has always managed to pull something.
Yeah, I'm gonna also like, you know, I maybe on Maria's Dungeon, but I'm gonna say 2-1 for Maria's Dungeon, just because I do believe we will take it. But like again, it's always fearless. Draft can always play a role, and I do think Cat Cowboys is super good. So like the fact that I think Cat Cowboys is super good, I'm not gonna really have any ego. Besides the belief that I can always win going into this, I don't see this. There's nothing about it that's going to be free. Not 1 second. I think that Maria's Dungeon will have to work for it in each of the games that we play. I think Cat Cowboys are just a super good team, super good, super solid. I can't really just point somewhere on the map and be like, oh yeah, that's the weak part about Cat Cowboys. I absolutely think that they're going to basically end up being what they always are, and at least a top 2 seed with hopefully for them more playoff success. Um, but generally, I think this is going to be a pretty fun match to watch.
Yeah, and honestly, this would be a week where I do not mind being wrong on a lot of my predictions. Um, I want it to be as competitive as possible. I don't like seeing 2-0s. 2-0 just kind of sucks sometimes. They feel a little boring. Um, so I'm hoping for a lot of stuff this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the reason why I went with the predictions I did was from the 2-0s from the previous week and based off the opponent and the unknowns. But like to me, it's actually way more interesting if our predictions are wrong because then like that just means the league is going to look absolutely fantastic and like week 3 and 4 like it'll be pretty crazy and then like it just makes basically the season super fun. So like by all means, except for obviously Maria's Dungeon, if all my predictions were wrong, cool. If that prediction is wrong, I'd be actually pretty upset. But like overall, I hope that basically the games are super good. Honestly, I would love to see a scoreline through each of the games this week just be 2-1, and with a bunch of surprises mixed in there. I think it would just make it super fun. So like I think this is going to be the start of like a telling week, and then I think by week 4 we're going to pretty much see where these teams pretty much lie.
Yeah.
I think about does it for the predictions for week 2. Thank you guys for having us, and we'll see you next week.